Welcome to City Talk. I'm your host, Chris Moriconi. The purpose of this show is to inform and educate you on issues impacting our communities right here in Northern Kentucky. And I'm excited about this episode because we have friends from the Northern Kentucky Water District that are going to join us, and we're going to talk about water, lead pipes, and a whole bunch of things. So I'm excited to get started. So let me introduce our friends from the Northern Kentucky Water District. Sara Sgantas, who is the Manager of Communications and Public Outreach. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you, Chris.
And Mary Carroll is returning. She's been on the show before. Mary Carroll Wagner is the Water Quality Manager. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks, Chris.
So, ladies, we are going to cover a lot on this episode, and I thought what it would be helpful for our viewers who may not know a lot about the Northern Kentucky Water District in general is for you to kind of walk our viewers through who you guys are, and then we'll kind of get into the meat of the topic today.
Right. Thank you, Chris. So the Northern Kentucky Water District services about 300,000 customers. So we are the largest water district in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We are the third largest water provider. So we follow Louisville Water, which services about 1 million, and they're city-owned. You have Kentucky American Water, which services Lexington area. They're investor-owned. And then you have us as a district. So we are the merger of over 18 water entities. Our service area is Kenton and Campbell counties with a portion of Boone County. So quite a range of service area. There's about 229 square miles of service area.
Wow. That's amazing. I would have never guessed we would be ahead of cities like Bowling Green, Paducah, and even Ashland. I learn something every day on this show. Well, that's interesting. So as far as how we got here today, what we're going to talk about some issues that some people may have with lead in their pipes. We're going to talk about that in more detail. But what prompted us to get here where we are today that we have to cover this topic? And I know Mary Carroll is going to show some examples of different pipes for our viewers. And we have a lot of great information that we'll share. But what brought us to this today to where we have to discuss and we have to do this community outreach to residents?
Right, and we really appreciate the opportunity to come on here today because our ask right now for our customers is to report their service line material. So this is all stemming from the United States Environmental Protection Agency's 2021 lead and copper rule revision. So that revision requires us to have an inventory of the service line materials in our service area. So that ask is part of why we're here today.
Is there a time limit on when this has to be accomplished? Did the EPA say, hey, we want an inventory by 2026, or is it?
So the initial inventory is due this October, but this is going to be an ongoing ask for our customers. We want to continue to build that inventory and make it as accurate as possible.
So, and you might cover this, if you have a house that was built 15 years ago, I'm assuming that's copper or PVC, do they still have to participate? Like, is it a broad, everybody has to report? Or is there a certain year built or approximate back to the 50s, 40s, 30s? Is it?
We need to have everyone participate because with this inventory, the EPA is asking us to have the service line for every house in our serving area, our district.
Wow. So, man, I thought I was going to get out of this myself. But no, seriously, I mean, that's good to know. I did not know that coming in because I know for a fact mine is copper. And you're going to talk about the website, and there's a way to go register and submit a picture or something. I believe you'll cover all that. So
Yes.
This is like a big deal. I mean, this is this is a master under. This is we have how many houses do you think total? Did you say?
So we have approximately 90,000 accounts in our service area, and we are estimating that probably about a third of those are made of lead. But there's a lot of unknowns, and that's why it's really important to have customers, no matter what type it is, report what that service line material is for our inventory.
And then are you going to, again, I don't want to jump ahead, are you going to get into what our viewers and our residents can do if they discover, oh my gosh, it's galvanized or it's lead? Is there a next steps they need to do?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of information on our website at nkYwater.org that talks about what to do if you do discover that you have lead, to sort of mitigate some of that risk of exposure.
And then one last question before we start talking about lead. Are other independent water districts required to do this as well? In other words, those in Northern Kentucky that don't fall under the Northern Kentucky Water District, are they having to do this as well?
Yes.
Okay.
All utilities are required to do the inventory.
Okay.
Even the utilities that don't have lead in their system, they have to have an inventory submitted.
Wow, so out of our 90,000, there's going to be a third they're going to come back with lead. That's already been determined.
Potentially. And like I said, there's a lot of unknown. But yeah, this ask for inventory is nationwide. This is not just unique to Kentucky.
Okay, wow, quite the undertaking. But we're in good hands with our friends here that you guys can get it done. And you're going to have to stay on people like me that maybe get a notice and said, hey, you haven't done this yet, and maybe get another notice, hey, Chris, you got 10 days, we need this. Just throwing that out there. Not that I'm a procrastinator. So, all right, well, let's get into basically what is lead. I mean, I think a lot of us know what lead is. Maybe some people don't, but when you get lead in your pipes, that's a game changer we need to talk about. So what is lead?
So lead is a natural element that is found in nature. It's found in air, it's found in soil, it's found in water, but it was used primarily in gasoline or paint until about the 1970s. It was really popular as a pipe material for plumbing because of its pliability and its resistance to leaks. But obviously, as we learned more and learned about the dangers of lead, it was eventually banned in Kentucky in 1988. So, so that it's, like I said, it's that metallic element, but it has a lot of dangers to it.
Yeah. And you brought up the other materials. I know some older historic homes actually have lead paint, and that's quite a deal getting that taken off and removed. I mean, it's treated almost, I don't want to say like asbestos, but it's you just don't take your lead pipes and throw them away. I'm sure there's a process. Or do you all collect lead pipes? I'm just curious if you guys, does the district take them or lead?
So we work on replacing, we know, and we'll dive into this with the service line because part of that is owned by us and part of that is owned by the customer. So we do, when we replace lead service lines, we do have a process for removing them and disposing of them properly.
Okay, yeah. So why is lead a health risk when it comes to your water?
Lead is a toxic metal, and it can cause immediate effects at high doses and long-term effects if it builds up in your body over many years. And young children are particularly vulnerable because of the physical and their physical and behavior effects that can occur when lead, because they have lower exposures in children than the adults do when they drink the water, just because they are young kids. And but lead can also cause long harm for the adults, including a risk of high blood pressure, cardiovascular problems, and also kidney damage. And because it's colorless and also tasteless, you don't even know that the lead is in your water. So the best way to make sure that it is not in your water is to have it tested by a certified lab.
That's unbelievable. I thought your answer was going to simply be lead can cause cancer. I didn't know it could cause all that. That's scarier than I thought. That's a lot of issues for your health.
Yes.
So then, does the Northern Kentucky Water District have lead in its water? I think that's a fair question. That
Right. So our team tests all of the finished water, which is what we call that finished treated water that's ready to drink before it leaves any of our treatment plants. And it does not contain lead when it leaves. The chance for it to come in contact with lead is really in, that's going to be more in like your plumbing system. Sometimes that's indoor plumbing, that's your solder joints, fixtures, or that lead service line. So that's going to be the first time it's going to potentially come into any sort of contact with lead, and the concern is it leaching from those lead fixtures, pipes into your water.
And what's interesting is, we were talking before the show started, because, you know, if you're in the Northern Kentucky Water District area, we're getting our water either from the Licking River or the Ohio River. We were kind of talking about, you know, where does it come from? And the answer was, I said, does my water in Independence come from the Licking or the Ohio? And she said, yes. So kind of both. But, you know, growing up in this area my whole life, you know, we've all heard the polluted stories of the Ohio River and the Licking. And I think they're a lot cleaner than they were in the 70s, thank goodness. But do you, and I've personally toured the Water District's facilities, the one that's right here in Taylor Mill, Latonia, and I felt a lot better when I saw the processes, the testing. It is way more involved than I ever could have dreamed. The quality of water that we have here, we're very fortunate. I think our water personally tastes good. You know, sometimes you go down south and it just, like in Florida, it has a certain taste to it. But I do want our viewers to know, I know we're talking about lead in pipes, not so much lead in water, even though sometimes the Licking River and the Ohio do have some chemical spills and stuff. Your redundancies, and I think your scientific testing is very stringent. I feel really good after touring that facility. By the way, does the public get to tour that? Is there, like, you give tours of that, or to the public, or is it just like group tours of the Water District?
So we are working on our public outreach program and working on building some of that information for the public to learn more about what our treatment plants look like and what that looks like. So if customers have questions or want to learn more, we encourage them to reach out to us, and we can talk them through and see what that looks like for them.
That's fair enough. You know, so another question is, what is being done to control the customer's exposure to lead?
Protecting you against the exposure to lead is a shared responsibility. Northern Kentucky Water is required to provide treatment to minimize the corrosivity of the water. And we do this by maintaining the pH, and we add a safe additive, a corrosion inhibitor, that kind of coats the pipe to help so that the lead doesn't leach out of the pipe. But then also that you can help reduce your risks in your household by trying to locate where the lead may be if you have lead in your lines. And it's always the best thing is try to remove as much lead as you can, especially to make sure that you don't have a lead service line on there. And then if you do, then we can work with you, and we need to try to have that removed from your household.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. That made me think of is you could have a lead service line coming in, but then the rest is copper. I mean, have you found that to be the case, where maybe over the years they just replaced everything up until where the line comes into your foundation? No,
it is the case that you could have a copper line up to the sidewalk or your meter, and then lead coming into your house.
Okay.
That is.
Well, this is great, and we're going to take a short break, and I think when we come back, we're going to maybe have some examples of different pipes, and we have some pictures and things to show our viewers, and kind of where to find it in the house and all that good stuff. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more City Talk in just a few minutes.
We put our trust in professionals with years of training to help us lead healthy lives. If they don't do their jobs correctly, our lives are on the line. Clean water is essential. Don't take it for granted.
We're back with more City Talk, and we're going to continue our discussion on water and lead pipes and everything with our friends from the Northern Kentucky Water District. So Mary, Carol, and Sarah's back with us. So we're just going to keep on going because we still got a lot to talk about. So the next question for our viewers is basically, what is a service line and who owns it?
So the service line is the pipe that connects our water main into the home. Now, part of that is owned by us, and the other half is owned by the customer. So we brought this sort of example that kind of shows what that looks like. So once again, from the water main to about the water meter, which is usually around your property line, that is owned by us. That's our portion. And then the part of the service line from the water meter into the home, that's the customer side of it. So there are some instances if the meter's inside the home, we are responsible up to like the curb stop, but that is what that water service line is.
Okay, so yeah, that's interesting because for those that have maybe newer homes, and the newer being the last 20, 30, 40 years maybe, that metal lid, I think we used to call it the crock that the meter sits in, that's usually between the sidewalk and the curb sometimes. So from that metal lid, as we call it, to your foundation, the homeowner's responsible for that. Anything else on the other side would be the district. Okay, that's fair enough. And then how many lead service lines do you think exist in northern Kentucky?
Well, once again, that's part of our huge ask for folks to report their service line material. We estimate that about a third of our customer-owned service lines could be made of lead, but we don't know. There are a lot of unknowns in the system, and that's why it is so important for residents to report that material for our inventory.
Okay, and then before the end of the show, you'll give the website that they can go and do that.
Absolutely. There's definitely a few options, and Mary Carol will go into how easy it is for folks to be able to report that.
Okay, so at this point, where we are with this and leading up to October, everybody should have gotten mailers by now, maybe a couple mailers, and including yours truly, who apparently received several, and I still have to go register. So, but you've mailed everybody that's in the district by now.
Yes, this has gone through if you get a paper bill, it's been included in. We sent out one of our service line inventory notices. So that has gone to, if you get a paper bill, it has gone in our bill. And also if you receive an e-bill, we sent information about that as well. So.
Okay. All right, well, pay attention to your emails and your mail pieces, especially when it comes to the water district, and it might involve personal health issues. So, okay, so the next question is, how do customers determine the type of service line material that they have, and where should they look that they can report it? And I think you got some examples that we can show our viewers. It's show and tell time on City Talk. This might be a first. I love it. So,
Okay.
I'll help you with that. Yeah.
Okay, this is just an example of the different sections of pipe that they could find in their household. Obviously, this is the copper, looks like a penny, very easy to tell, orange glow on there. This is your plastic. It can come in various different colors. You can have the blue or the black, which you see there, or the red on there. So that would be reported as a plastic pipe. And then you have your lead. Your lead line is usually a gray. I mean, it couldn't be covered with a dark color. And what is a good thing to do is if you take a penny and you scratch it, it will shine.
Really?
Yes, because it is a very, it does scratch very easily.
Okay.
And when you scratch it and it does have the shine to it and it does have that silver shine to it, then that's a good indicator that it is the lead line.
Wow.
If you take and scratch it, because sometimes your copper pipe will have some dark color to it. If you scratch it too and you get that coppery look under it, then that's the indicator that you have copper instead of lead. Even though it does have the dark look, because some of the copper does get old over time, and it does change colors.
Yeah, it can get green and lime build up on it, and okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
And green is a good indicator that there is, if you have green corrosion on it anywhere, that's a good indicator that you have copper, because
Thank goodness.
the lead line will not.
Make sure you wash your hands after touching that lead, Mary.
Yes. Yeah, you probably do want to. And then another is black iron. You can have a black iron or a galvanized. Look, the galvanized look on there. And a way to determine if it's galvanized is a magnet will stick to the galvanized. A magnet will stick to your black iron, but if it's lead, it does not stick. I mean, on the plastic, of course, it's not going to stick, and it doesn't stick to the copper either.
That's a great
So
idea.
those two, take your penny or whatever you have
Yeah.
to scratch it to tell, and also take your magnet and see to make sure.
Honestly, I'd never even heard of black iron. I'm sure it's in the area, and I'm no expert on water pipes by any stretch, but I mean, is black iron commonly found?
It's not as common as what your copper and your plastic and the lead would be, but it is out there. I've been having several of the submittals that have that black iron.
Do you think there's a certain era, decade, that you tend to have a higher percentage of a certain material other than copper?
It depends on, actually some of the materials depend on what the plumbers of the time had available for them on it. And a lot of, and when you go way back in the early 1900s, a lot of them did keep the lead. Lead is very easy and flexible, so they can get it in through the households easier. And that was before we even knew anything about the toxicity of the lead lines.
Well, this has been very helpful, and I hope our viewers get a good shot at it. And I think maybe we can put some pictures up on the screen for them at the right time and get a closer look. And I think these are on the website too. People can see those.
They are, yep. We have what Mary Carol just outlined as far as the scratch test, the magnet test, looking at color. We have all that information on our website at nkYwater.org that walks through exactly what Mary Carol did with what will stick, what will shine, and how they can tell.
Yeah, the magnet's a great idea. I think if you're not sure, I mean, if it sticks to something, that's probably not good.
Yeah, and then another thing to point out is you want to have the right part, the right section of the pipe when you do have it. You want to have the part of the pipe that right as it comes through your foundation. If you have a basement, you want to go look for where your main shutoff valve is, and then follow it to where it goes through the outside wall of your foundation. If you don't have a basement, just go to where your, hopefully you can find where the main shutoff valve is, and it's usually through the floor or a side wall that would go out to an outside line from there. But this is a good example of a copper line, and you can tell this is that blue corrosion that I was talking about. And the picture is a nice picture because it shows both the shutoff valve and also right as it comes through the wall, because this is your service line. And we need to know that part of it. It might change as it comes out through the wall, and then it might be copper, and you'll be reporting copper when you actually have a lead line there.
It's not as easy as I thought to really do. I mean, honestly, this is great information.
No, and this is a great picture to show up close on where it does come through the wall.
Yes.
There is, and then again, you have your copper corrosion there.
Yeah, there's the green. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just another real close-up of where it comes through the wall. And then this one is a good picture of a lead line.
Wow.
A lead line will have this balloon look before it comes to your shutoff valve.
Really?
But you can see as this picture is good because then it shows again where it comes through the wall on there. But an up close of a lead line is you can see where that bubble look is right there, and that's a good indicator of lead.
A bubble?
Yeah, it's a little bulge in where they connect it. It's the way that they would connect it to. It could even be connected to a copper pipe from there. So this is right at the wall, and it's just a short section that is actually lead, and that can cause some health concerns if you even have a short section.
Okay, that's great. These are great pictures.
And then here is the up close of that bubble-like picture of the lead line. Not all of the lead lines have that, but the majority of them that I see have it. So your check with with your coin and scratch test is a really good indicator. And then this is an up close of actually that where this is that corroded looking. I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell that that's lead until you do that scratch test.
That's amazing. That's great. The magnet and the scratch test, I think that's very beneficial. I had no idea.
And to just emphasize Mary Carol's point, it is really important to get that picture and be looking at that right part of the pipe, because if you if you are looking at the wrong part, you could be reporting or thinking that, you don't have lead, that it's copper. So it's really also important too that not only looking to see what type it is, but making sure that you're getting the right part.
Well, yeah, that's a great point. And then to that, so if a customer has lead, they discovered, oh my gosh, I have lead, black iron, or galvanized, what do they do?
So we have a lot of resources on our website at nkYwater.org that talks about things that they can do to mitigate some of those risks. Obviously, as Mary Carol mentioned earlier, the best way to reduce your risk is to remove any sources of lead. But something that you can do too, one of the pieces of advice we have is to make sure that if you haven't used a faucet for a while, if it's sat, overnight or some hours, to run your line for about 3 to 5 minutes to flush out any water that might have been sitting in any of those lead lines. So help moving that water through. As she talked about earlier, we do some things like the corrosion inhibitor and maintaining that pH. So we have a lot more resources on our website that talk about what to do if you do discover that you do have a lead service line.
And that includes water testing, is that
Yes.
correct?
We do offer water testing, or you can, you can send it to a certified lab, but we do offer water testing at least for the first initial, the sample. We would have to have you collect that sample because we like to have the water sit in the lines for at least 6 to 8 hours, and it's the first draw out of the water line so that we can get the worst case scenario if there is lead in your lines. Because as we said before, that flushing through, you might have, that helps keep the lead from leaching into the water. But if it sits overnight or if you're on vacation, you might want to go ahead and flush the lines on a regular basis if you do know that you have lead lines in your household.
That's a good point, to flush. Yeah, that's great. And they can bring the sample. They can call the district and get information on where to bring it and how much and what kind of container to put it in and all that.
Yes,
Exactly.
Okay. Well, this is great information. So just a real quick recap then before we wrap up this episode. The Water District is looking at roughly 90,000 customers. Out of that, maybe a third could potentially have lead. We really need to check our lines and report back in via the website, which is...
So NKYwater.org, we have information on how to go to LeadCast, which is our
Yes.
reporting tool. But Mary Carol, who has been helping facilitate this, there are also other avenues. If you need to report, you can email, you can call. We know that sometimes people have, especially if that line is down in the basement, you can contact us and we can work if there's access issues.
Well, ladies, I really appreciate you joining us. This has been educational. I love when I learn something new every day, and there's a lot of moving parts. It's a little bit more involved than I thought, so it's up to all of us to check our lines and report and register, me included. But thank you for joining us on this episode of City Talk. You can see this replayed at channel 203 on Spectrum, I believe 815, channel 815 on Fioptics. It'll be on demand, and then also at tbnk.org. You'll be able to see it in a couple weeks from today. And great to talk about water. It's something we all use every day and we need. And I don't think a day goes by we're not drinking water. So you guys have been great. Thank you. And thank our audience for sticking with us. And we'll see you next time on City Talk. And remember, it's your government.